We are recording the interview of Mike Rose. This interview is being conducted by Jennifer Seavey from the Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. It is 12:45 p.m. on September 7th, 2017. Okay, so where and when were you born?
I was born in Healdsburg, California on August 6, 1948. My family is from that area, going clear back to the 1800s. My grandfather moved there. He was an immigrant from Germany, or my great-grandparents were.
Okay.
I lived in the same house from the time I was born until I went to service, and inherited it from my father when he passed away, and I still own it. So that's in Gajerreel, California.
That's great. So who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My parents were Mr. and Mrs. Harvey Rose, William Harvey Rose and Vilda M. Rose. And my dad was, most of my life, he worked in a lumber mill until he retired, and they raised chickens for eggs, which seemed to be a common thing to do after World War II. I have no idea why, but everybody that ever did. My dad was one of the last holdouts. He's the last one to give it up. And my mom, that was like a part-time job for him, you know, to make ends meet, because there wasn't a lot of money back in them days. My mom was a housekeeper. It wasn't really a two-party occupation back in them days. You know, the women stayed at home and did housework and raised kids, but she had also delivered the eggs that we raised every day to different places and took care of the chickens during the day, and then he came home at night. And then I had an older brother, who was 9 years older than me, and he fed the chickens at night, and then when he got moved on and I got old enough, I did that, and that's what we did at nighttime. We watched what TV we had and cleaned eggs, and after I did my homework. So.
Now, was your brother in the service as well?
My brother was also in Air Force. That's the reason I joined the Air Force. Well, one of the reasons I joined the Air Force. He was in from 1957 to 1960, and he was in military police, and he was in a K-9 unit.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what were you doing before you entered the service?
I was going to school, going to junior college, and I realized that, you know, with the Vietnam War going on and the draft, and it wasn't really for me, so I went a semester and a half and I quit, and went back to work full time, and I signed up for the Air Force and Navy, everything to avoid the draft, and I got called to go in the Air Force in August.
Okay.
Well, actually, before I turned 19, I got called. Yeah, I went and celebrated my 19th birthday, and a week after my 19th birthday, I went and took my physical. But they had what they called then a delayed enlistment program, so I signed up and joined the Air Force in August, and I didn't go on active duty to basic training until October.
Okay. What had you been going to school for?
That was kind of like general education. I think I listed. Trying to remember, that was a long time ago. Engineering is my major.
Okay.
But like I say, at that time in life, my life, and the way the world was going, it was just it wasn't a good fit. So. I was so close to getting drafted that I got my draft notice. I was at basic training for the Air Force.
Was the draft notice for the Army, or?
Yes. Oh, yeah. The draft was. Well, they didn't really decide. 99% of the people went in the Army that got drafted. But when I took my physical, I did see if they didn't get enough people to sign up for Marines, you could get drafted in the Marines. But yeah, the draft was on the ground, you know, grunts, and I didn't figure if I had to go serve my country, I was going to go do it on my terms and get something out of it other than how to shoot a gun. I already knew how to do that.
So, Where was basic training for you?
Lackland.
Okay.
Lackland Air Force Base, Texas. When I went in, there was 2 basic training bases. They were both in Texas. There was one in Lackland, which is in San Antonio, and the other one was in Amarillo, Texas, which have since closed.
How did you adapt to military life?
Quickly. It's just, yeah. As soon as I got off the airplane in Texas, let's see, I was what, 19? You know, and I smoked at the time. And yeah, there was a drill sergeant waiting Air Force to pick us up, and yeah, it was a real awakening experience, I guess. So, but after, yeah, it doesn't take too long. Yeah, by the time you get done with basic training, you're pretty well adapted.
So where did you go after basic
Okay,
training?
from basic training, I went to, the funny thing was, when I had fairly high aptitude test scores, and my recruiter at the time said you can have your pick of the fields you want to go into. I said okay, so I wanted to go into electronic or radio repair or something to that effect, you know. And so I went to basic training, and then partway through basic training, they get everybody together and they say, okay, this is what you're gonna be. You fill out these papers of what you want to do, and then you get your orders of what you are going to do. And when I got my orders, it said I was going to go to Lowry Air Force Base, Colorado, to, you know, be a weapons mechanic. And I said, well, that's not what they told me I could. You know, I wanted to go into electronics. And I just remember the statement being made to me at the time when I questioned it, that airmen, our needs come first, yours come second. We need MMS, or, you know, munitions maintenance people at this time, so you're going to Lowry. There is electrical in that field, so it qualifies you. So. Which is all good now that I look back on it, yeah.
Okay,
I have
so
no complaints.
when you were in Colorado, what did your day look like there?
We went to school every day. We learned basic electricity, and then after that, then how to troubleshoot the weapon systems, and then we learned how to load bombs and work on bombs, and we learned how to take apart and put back together an M61, which is a like a Gatling gun. It's a multi-barreled 21 millimeter shell, or 20 millimeter shell it is, and things to that effect. And then we got orders to go to whatever base we were going to be stationed at.
How long was your training there?
Oh God, I got into that was a culture shock too, because I left Texas as like 75, and when, I don't know how familiar you are with the uniforms of the service, but they have like dress blues, and they have another set. They're kind of a dress uniform, which is a 1505. I think they changed the number to 505 now. Then they have fatigues, and so anyway, we left there, and we're in 1505s. In Texas, and got in Colorado. It's the first part of December, and there's like 2 feet of snow on the ground. So that was kind of like I said, a culture shock.
And how long did you say you were there
I
for?
was there from December, and I left in April.
Oh, okay.
And it was like 4 months. I'm going to say 4 months was the schooling.
Was the training, the schooling for that any different from basic for you?
Oh yes.
How so?
It was more relaxed in some respects and more strict in other respects, but it was definitely more relaxed. I mean, you didn't have a DI stand over your head 24/7 telling you what to do and how to do it, and so you had more freedom, but you still had. I remember when I was in tech school, we had to keep the floor so clean on the main walkway. There was a Coke machine on the opposite end of the hallway, and we had to have the floor polished to where you could read all the lettering on the Coke machine. But, you know, there's certain things you remember from even after 50 years, but I remember that. Yeah, we always walked in the door and we went around the back side. Everything was polished, but we kept that. That was the inspection, and it stayed that way.
That sounds
But
familiar.
after you were off, you know, after school was out, you went and ate, and there had an airman's base, airman's club on base. When I was lucky enough to be on the opposite side of the base, I had to walk through 2 feet of snow or whatever to get there. And I can remember you could I think you could keep beer. In Colorado, it was legal to drink at 18, so you could keep beer. Because I remember putting beer in the windowsill because of the snow. It was so you could just keep beer in there if you wanted. So yeah, it was more laid back, but it still had strict rules. Of course, being in the service, it always had rules. So.
That's true. So after
I went from there. I went to Warner Robins, Georgia. I was in what they call a strategic air command at that point in time, and the gentleman next door, we kind of worked he worked in a different. He wasn't in munitions, but he worked on the missiles that I learned to load. So we were just talking. So that we had all SAC bases had I'm going to say 6 B-52s on standby, fully loaded, ready to go at any time for nuclear deterrent. That was before they cut back on the military, so they were all over the United States. So that's what we did. They stayed on alert for, I'm going to say 30 days. That's flight crew. Everybody had anything to do with that airplane, and so every plane got rotated. So you had just one section with 6 planes on it, and the pilots and co-pilots and whatever lived right there, right next to the flight line where they have these planes parked. They have barracks for them, and then they take them off and they take them out on the main flight line, and then they would download the weapons and send them back to the weapons shop or whatever, and then go through and make sure. I mean, they hadn't done anything, but they just didn't let them. And then we'd take them out, and they had bunkers that they put them in. I remember when I was in Warner Robins, which is in the southern part of the country, in Georgia, and I was there during the summertime, we had the electrical storm. And I remember lightning hitting our maintenance shop, because every building back there has a lightning rod that I wasn't used to, not being from California.
what was that like?
It was different. It was a big bang and a lot of shaking going on, as Elvis Presley would say. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And our bomb storage area was out in a swamp, and they just built them up with like levees. So you drove out there on this levee road, but all around this levee was a swamp. We had water moccasins out there in the swamp around the bombs. Yeah, so you had to be careful. So from there, I went to Utah.
Okay. What was that like for you preparing to leave?
By then I was situated enough in the service that it was just another duty station. Oh, there was one other thing you were talking about. There was while I was at Warner Robins, they had to work on a runway. And what I was telling you about the alert status, they could not just say, okay, we're going to work on a runway. We can't use it anymore. This base is set off to the side. They took our airplanes to Loring Air Force Base in Maine while they did this, and the crews had to go up there on what they call temporary duty assignment. I was up there TDY for 30 days.
Oh, okay. So what the alert was just to be ready for any nuclear...
There was a movie, and I'm trying to remember, that had Andy Devine in it. I was going to ask you if you'd ever seen it before, where he rides a missile down. It was, I can't remember the name. It's an old movie. But it was it was like there was a real nuclear war between us and the Russians. And there was a B-52 involved in it, and Andy Devine, who's been dead for years, so looking how old you are, I don't, think you probably ever saw it, but yeah, when I grew up during what they call a Cuban Missile Crisis, I can remember the teachers, I think it was in high school when that happened, teaching us how to crawl underneath our desks in case we had a nuclear attack. It was that close. So, like I said, we had every SAC base. I can't remember how many there are in the United States. Most of them are closed down now. But there was 3 or 4 in California. That Warner Robins was one. I ended up, when I came back from overseas, we can get onto that later if you want. After you go to over there, when you come back, you do actually get a semi-choice of what bases, if they have an opening for you. So, and being from California, I put in for 3 different bases. That was Castle Air Force Base, and that's where they trained the B-52 pilots and the KC-135 pilots. In Mather, which used to be in Sacramento, and then Beale, and that's still, that one there is still active because that's also the home base of what they call the SR-71, the Blackbird. I don't know if you ever heard of it or not.
Blackbird sounds familiar.
It was, yeah, it was a reconnaissance plane like a U-2, and before they had satellites, but they still used to be the Blackbird, I believe. So I put in for those 3 bases, and then they had Marsh Air Force Base, which is in Southern California, in Riverside, which is a SAC base, and that's where my brother was stationed.
Okay.
So they had those 4 SAC bases in the West Coast. Omaha, Nebraska was another one. There was a bunch of. I'm going to say that Wright-Patterson might have been. I'm going to say it might have been a SAC base at one time, but that was all during this Cold War status when they had all these nuclear warheads on standby. Every one of them. I don't know how much you've heard about people carrying little black satchels, and they had all their. Nobody knew where. If you got called on to go, you couldn't open that thing until you got up in the air and what your target was, from what I understand. But that's all. Well, back in the day.
So, after Georgia, you were sent to Thailand.
Utapao, Thailand, to support the Vietnam War.
What was your duties there?
The same thing, only it was conventional bombs. Instead of nuclear bombs, it was conventional bombs. Also, when I was in the States, I ended up being on what they call it, LAT team, which is a loading evaluation team. I was there a short time, and that was like I was a teacher and a supervisor at the position that there were 5 people on a loading team. And then,
what does everybody do on that 5 team?
well, there's the team chief, and he's in charge. He's the one that catches. If something goes wrong, he catches the hell. And then we had machinery to load these bombs. I can't remember that there was a trailer that you put the bomb into, and I don't remember the designation of it, but the wheels pivoted, and then you rolled it underneath the bomb bay, and then it was all hydraulic, and it lifted it up and it locked it in place. And before you did all that, you did a ring out of the system to make sure everything worked right with headsets, and that's where the electrical end of it came in. If there was a problem, you had to troubleshoot the problem.
And is that what you did?
Well, each person had a job to do, and I don't even remember what I did in the States. I'm going to say I was may have been a 3-man in the States, but I do remember I was a 1-man overseas on the conventional bombs.
Okay.
So I put over there. We had 2 sections. We had what they have, a preload section where they put the internal bombs in a rack, and they sent them out to the flight line on a trailer. And then on the flight line where I worked, you loaded those bombs into the airplane with this trailer you picked up the trailer load of bombs. There was three trailers to a bay, and you pushed them in, and then I got off the tractor. I think I helped them push, the other 4 guys push it underneath the thing, but it had to open the bomb bay doors on a B-52, and they open this way to drop the bombs, but to load them you have to open. They pivot another way, and there was a big T-handle. There's a guy on each end, and I don't remember what everybody did, but.
Okay.
And like I said, the chief, the crew chief, who happens to be my best buddy, or one of my good friends I've stayed in contact since 1969. He was my crew chief, or team chief, I should say. So he kind of just supervised everything. And then that was on internal bombs. Then on external bombs, they come out on there was 12 on each side. There was 24 total on the pylons. And that's what Chris did, I guess, when he was over there. He said he worked on the pylons because he worked on Hound Dog missiles in the States, which went on the pylons. Those were nuclear. Hound Dog were nuclear air-to-air missiles or air-to-surface missiles. Yeah, big third had nuclear warhead too.
So while you were in Thailand, how did you keep in contact with family and friends back home?
I wrote back and forth at Christmas time. This is the different ages, everything. That was a cell phone. We had, I'm gonna say it was either the USO or the Red Cross, and we could go make a video, or maybe it's an audio with a picture. I can't remember. I just remember doing that at Christmas time and sent back to my family in the States. That was, you know, that was as close to, there was no contact as far as phones. It was all by paper mail.
How long were you in Thailand?
A year.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the guys nowadays, because I see where some of them guys go, they get orders to go to Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever they go, but for a year and a half, 2, it's ridiculous. Over that, if you were in a war zone, it was the maximum was a year. If you were like in Guam or Okinawa, where they also had SAC bases, that's where they started the bombing with the B-52s was Guam, and before they got built. The base where we were at was actually a Royal Thai Navy Air Force or Navy base, and the U.S. government and the Thai government got together, and because Thailand was neutral in the Vietnam War, so there were restrictions when they expanded that base with the B-52s. But as the war progressed and they needed more B-52s, it was economically ineffective. It's a long way from Guam, especially Okinawa, to fly to Vietnam. So they needed something closer, I guess. But if you went to either one of them bases, it was like, I was going to say a year and a half or 2 year tour, because they weren't in a non-combat zone.
Did you have any free time when you were
We got 1 day a week off.
What did you do?
We went downtown and spent what little money we had. Did our shopping at the base of the commissary. We drank a lot.
Did you travel anywhere else while you were there?
While I was there, we got 2 3-day passes, as I remember. I think it was for being low team of the month, or they gave you a, well done pat on the back or whatever. It was a big thing, but it was a really big thing at the time. There's a lot of low teams over there. So to get that, and we had 2 shifts. We had day shift and night shift. So each shift got one. So we got that twice, as I remember, when we were over there. Actually, I have a patch somewhere, I think it's at home, that we were best at munitions maintenance squadron and strategic air command in 1968, I believe. So that's kind of something to be proud of too.
Definitely. So you were in Thailand. Did you see a lot of the media going on about the Vietnam?
No.
No?
No. I mean, not. We didn't. Well, we had what they call Armed Forces Television station. And I probably did. I was only 20 years old. I turned 21 over there, so you were just a kid. You didn't pay attention to it. It's just something you did that was going on, I wasn't I always thought it was an economic reason. The government told us at the time was to keep communism from spreading, but one of the biggest oil reserves in the world is off the Gulf of Vietnam or Thailand or whatever, out there in the South China Sea. And I always said it was more economic. There was money behind it that I don't think it was, but that was my personal opinion. We were at the era of, if your government asked you to do something, you just went and did it. And I still feel that way. I think you should reinstate the draft myself. If you don't believe in picking up a gun, then at least you ought to give some. All the kids nowadays don't have no direction. They don't know what they're going to do. They have no obedience or anything. At least even if you went to Peace Corps, which they had started back then, you gave something back to the government beneficial instead of take. Now it's a take society. I totally disagree. I'm sorry. Old school. And am I saying more than I should? Okay.
No, you're doing fine. So after,
So yeah, we had Armed Forces Television, and we had there was a newspaper that Armed Forces put out too. Because we were just talking about that before you came over there. But where we were at, one guy said he just got to his duty station in Barksdale when they shot the Apollo 13. I said, well, I can't remember which was the first one that they landed on the moon. And he said that was it. I said, well, I was in Thailand when that happened. I remember that.
wow.
So we did get news and stuff, but I wasn't, didn't really. I think one of the biggest things I remember about the media, it wasn't over there so much as it was over here. When I was on leave before I went over there, there was a big, because I went over there like in November or whatever it was, and there was a big thing about during Christmas we're gonna. Well, no. Number one, we weren't bombing in Cambodia or Laos, however you pronounce it. And number two, there was a big Christmas 3-day thing where they did in 72 hours. It was everybody laid their arms down. That was so much bullshit that's when I found out the government tells you what they want you to know, and they lie to you through their teeth. I hate to say that about our own government because it is. I'm not. I'm patriotic, and I think we have the best system in the whole world. Because I've been to Thailand, and so people don't really realize how bad things can really get because they've never had it really bad like other countries do. So, and we've made everybody else in the world mad at us. So, but like I said, I got over there, and the first thing we did before I even went out on a flight line is we had a debriefing, and then went to a debriefing, and they're talking about the bomb runs that we're making in, I don't remember either Laos or Cambodia. That's when I said, somebody's lying here. And then during a Christmas slowdown or shutdown or whatever they call them, we loaded more bombs and had more B-52 sorties than any other time of the year.
okay. So, after Thailand, where did you go?
Like I said, we got our choice of duty stations, and I put in for 3 bases in California, and I got stationed at Castle, which is the training base for B-52s, and I was there from there until I got out.
Were your duties similar?
It was, only I went back to load nuclear bombs.
Okay.
It was the same thing. It had all strategic air command bases during the Cold War had an alert force. And when I can't remember which president it did, it could have been Reagan. When they cut way back after the Cold War, they said we don't need all this stuff, and they closed all these. March Air Force Base was closed. Castle Air Force Base is something else. It's Mather's closed. Mare Island, which is nothing to do with the Air Force, but that used to be. My dad worked there during World War II. He worked on he was a crane rigger because that was a big Navy base for repairing submarines and other ships. And that's been since closed. So they closed all these military installations.
Oh. So, when you came back home, how were you received by your friends, the community?
I grew up in a small town, so I was pretty much, received fine. I didn't. There was people in other places. They didn't really like the Vietnam War, and there was a lot of hatred. I get really surprised now. People catch me off guard because nowadays they see with any kind of military emblem or something on it says "Thank you for your service," and that wasn't the case in Vietnam. So it happens constantly. I went to the dump here not too long ago, and I pulled up there, and where I live, they charge you for dumping your garbage. I have service, but once in a while I have to clean up things in my yard. And I go up there, and the guy said, "Did anybody tell you thank you today?" And I looked at him like, "Thank you for what?" He said, "Thank you for your service." And he stuck his hand out and shook my hand because I have a Vietnam veterans cap on. So that makes you feel good. But no, we did not have that. when I came back from overseas. But as far as friends and family and, you know, the people in my community, nobody ever said anything, or they all, you know, they're glad that you came home alive. I lost one really good friend. It was a Marine in Vietnam. He was on his way home. I happened to be home on leave, and I went to his funeral. But he was on an aircraft carrier, and he was in a helicopter, and somebody was smoking on the flight line, and it caught on fire and blew up. And he went. I can't remember all the different battles they had over, but he was in one of the worst, Pork Chop Hill, or maybe that was the Korean War. I don't know. Anyway, he went through that, lived through that, and he basically died from friendly fire. And him and I were one of my best friends in grammar school. So it was just part of the time.
So when you came, so when you were in Castle, you said how long were you there for?
About 18 months. I got there in the first part of December, and I got out in May. I got what they call an early out release to go to school. I went back to college for a while.
What did you go to school for?
The same thing, general ed. Yeah.
Did you readjust to civilian life well, or
Sure.
was it easy transition for you?
Yeah. I kicked myself. My dad worked in a sawmill, and I already had a job when I got out working, and because of my electrical background, I went to work there working nights, working on electric motors and turning them apart, putting them back together. And the daytime maintenance supervisor had, that after I got the feel of things, he had me laid out with all kinds of stuff I did every night, and I went to school during the day.
That's great. So have you remained in contact with anyone that you served with?
My team chief from Utapao. I actually went to his wedding in 1972. He sent me an invitation, my wife, I brought it to the last reunion we had. My mom saved everything. Of course, back in them days, everybody was a pack rat anyway, I think. Well, my parents went through the Depression. They got married in 1930, so when they were alive. So anyway, when my dad passed away, I found all this stuff, and I still had the footlocker with my uniform and anything. But I found the letter that his wife now, it was his fiance at the time, sent me asking me, would I please come to their wedding, which was really nice. And when I got, I've always been involved with car racing since I was just a little kid, because my older cousin raced and my brother raced, and so that was one of my things to do. But at the time, my car was wrecked, so I had an opportunity. I couldn't race anyway, so I flew back to Minneapolis and watched him get married, and we have stayed in contact and good friends ever since. At least every 5 years we see each other. Now that we belong to this, we see each other every year. And which was nice last year, because another person that was on our team, was the first time I saw him since 1969, and he lives in Kansas. So it's the camaraderie. When you're a young kid, yes and no, you make friends that you work with, you don't know everybody, but now that we have this alumni thing together, these are all people who did the same thing or stationed at the same base. It's a nice way before we leave this world to get together.
When did you start coming to the reunions?
A year ago.
Okay.
Last one, I guess this alumni has been going on since even before Facebook. It was when whoever started it, it was part of the Yahoo. But my buddy that I told you about, he's always asked me, do you know how to get a hold of so-and-so? There was one other person that and I think he went to Shoes' wedding too, and he committed suicide. His name was John McCann. He was from one of the Carolinas, and then ended up being a truck driver and living in South Dakota, I believe. So we stayed, and I talked to him when he was alive. There was 3 of us, but there was a lot of other people that I met. And there's one guy lived in Oakland, and I haven't seen him since the day I came back from overseas, because his dad actually gave me a ride. He picked us up at the airport. My parents didn't know I was coming home when I did. I think my date got moved up or something, and I didn't let them know, and so I snuck in on him. So his dad picked us up at Travis, and then Oakland's not that far away, so we went down there. I think we had breakfast, then he took me to the bus station. I caught a Greyhound bus and I went home. So, but I don't know what happened to him, and there's another guy in the room across me from Utah. His name was Carmody. I have no idea. So back to where I was talking about, she was always asking me about this, and I said I don't know. And then he actually put a advertisement in American Legion magazine, and he got a couple of hits off of it. But somehow I don't know how he found out about this Facebook page. So he called me or texted me or something, said, you know, they have an alumni for Utah on Facebook, and I said, well, that's good. I'm not on Facebook. So that was right around my birthday. So I took my laptop down to my daughter. She had a birthday dinner for me, and I went and I said, you need to get me on Facebook. So I got on Facebook, and then I joined the reunion then.
That's great.
So.
Okay, so we're winding down now. How do you feel your military experience has affected your life?
I think it's made me a better person. I mean, it taught me, they teach you, well, to me, that even now, even the military is a little bit pussyfied. That's just the only word I can think of say, well, no, I might, if you go in and you don't like it, you can just raise my hand and say, I want out. When I was, you got drafted or you joined, whatever, there was no getting out. And it shouldn't be. I mean, I think everything, the whole world is, or the United States, not the whole world, has gotten too relaxed and too, I'm trying to think of the word to use for it, but it's just, there's not enough discipline. From the time kids grow up, everything is, oh, you can't do that. Go stand in the corner. I mean, I don't believe in child abuse, but on the other hand, I do believe in corporal punishment. I mean, that's discipline, and it shows you. I respect people. I respect people older than myself. I don't feel like I'm as old as I am, but I am. But I was taught that by my parents, and it was reiterated being in the service to just learn discipline and respect. And I think that's, that my time in the service helped with that, and I think everybody should have to go through it.
Is there a message you would like to leave for future generations who will view this?
Yes, I think they definitely should give back to the country that this burning of the flag and all this other stuff is. Stop and think of who laid their lives down for it. I mean, you're not the elite, and that's another problem with all volunteer military. To me, that. You got these people over here that volunteer to do this, and then you got these people over here taking advantage of it. And I just totally disagree with that. Everybody should have to do their time.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed?
No, I think we pretty much touched bases. I don't know if I said more than I should. I think the time limit, well, I had a top secret security clearance when I was in the service, so I got to think about that. Maybe I'm saying more than I should about what I did and where but I think the time limit has run out on all of that. I don't think they can come back on me. No, I wasn't allowed to talk about anything I did the time I was in the service, and I can't remember. I was going to say 10 years or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, well, like I said, I had top security clearance. So, yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Okay. Well, then that concludes our interview, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.